A homeless girl says, "You look just like my dad." The DNA test reveals the shocking truth. Imagine this. You're walking down a bustling city street, the noise of traffic and chatter all around you. You've seen it before. Someone sitting on the sidewalk, holding a cardboard sign, their eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of hope. Most people walk past, heads down, avoiding eye contact. But then, something happens that stops you in your tracks. A young girl, no older than 13 or 14, looks up at you with piercing blue eyes and says, "You look just like my dad." It's not just her words, it's the desperation in her voice. The way she clutches an old photograph like it's her last lifeline. Would you stop? Would you believe her? Or would you convince yourself it's just a coincidence and keep moving? This is exactly what happened to John Parker, a man whose life was as predictable as the ticking of a clock. Every morning, he grabbed his coffee from the same cafe near his office in downtown Chicago, took the same route to work, and greeted the same security guard at the entrance of his sleek corporate building. His days were structured, comfortable, and safe, until one fateful afternoon when everything changed. That day, standing face to face with a homeless girl named Emily, John felt something stir inside him, something he couldn't ignore. The photograph she showed him wasn't perfect, but the resemblance was uncanny. For the first time in years, John found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about his past and his future. Emily's story tugged at John's heartstrings in ways he never expected. She told him how her mother had always said her father didn't abandon her. He simply didn't know she existed. Her words carried both pain and hope, a fragile thread connecting her to a family she might never have known. John wrestled with doubt and disbelief, but deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was truth in what she said. Was it possible? Could he really be her father? As much as his logical mind screamed that it was absurd, something about Emily's desperation made him pause. He decided to take a leap of faith. A DNA test would give them answers, but it would also change their lives forever. The story of John and Emily isn't just about biology. It's about belonging, identity, and the lengths we go to find connection. In a world that often feels cold and indifferent, their journey forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about privilege, responsibility, and the invisible struggles so many face every day. How far would you go to uncover the truth about your own life? What if the person you least expected turned out to be the missing piece of your puzzle? These are the questions at the heart of this incredible story. As the days passed, John found himself consumed by guilt and curiosity. He visited Emily at the shelter where she stayed, bringing her food and clothes, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. Sarah, John's wife, became his anchor during this turbulent time. Together, they grappled with the possibility of welcoming a teenage girl into their lives overnight. Were they ready to become parents again? Could they provide the stability and love Emily so desperately needed? Meanwhile, Emily wrestled with her own fears and doubts. After years of surviving on the streets, could she trust that someone actually cared about her? Each interaction between them peeled back another layer of complexity, revealing raw human emotions that will resonate with anyone who has ever longed for acceptance. One of the most powerful moments came when the DNA test results finally arrived. John sat alone in his office, staring at the screen, his hands trembling as he read the words, 99.9% probability of paternity. In that instant, his world shifted beneath him. All those years of living comfortably, while his own daughter struggled alone on the streets. It was almost too much to bear when he told Sarah. Her calm yet heavy response summed up the gravity of the situation. "Come home. We need to talk." Those few words set the stage for a conversation that would redefine their lives. But even with the truth revealed, the challenges were only beginning. Bringing Emily into their home meant more than providing shelter. It meant helping her heal from years of trauma and neglect. School was a battlefield. Friendships were hard to come by, and trust didn't come easily to someone who had spent most of her life learning to survive. Yet amidst the struggles, there were glimmers of hope, small victories, like Emily laughing at dinner or calling John Dad for the first time, reminded them why they had chosen this path. Still, the question lingered. Could they truly rebuild what had been broken? And then, just when things seemed to be falling into place, Emily dropped a bombshell. She revealed that she had taken another DNA test, not because she doubted John, but because she wanted to know more about her roots. The results pointed to someone else, a man named David Reynolds, listed as her biological father. Suddenly, the foundation they had worked so hard to build was shaken once again. Who was David? Did he know about Emily? And if he did, would he want anything to do with her? As Emily prepared to meet David, the tension reached a breaking point. Sitting across from him at a quiet cafe, she realized this moment could either mend her fractured sense of identity or shatter it completely. David's nervous smile mirrored her own uncertainty, and for the first time, they both faced the reality of what it meant to start over. But the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Old wounds don't heal overnight, and forgiveness isn't given lightly. As Emily left the cafe that day, she couldn't help but wonder, had she gained a second chance at family or opened a door to more heartache? Stay tuned for the next part of this unforgettable story, where we'll dive deeper into Emily's journey of self-discovery and the ripple effects of one life-changing decision. This is more than just a tale of unexpected connections. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to transcend even the greatest odds. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. As Emily sat across from David at the small cafe, her mind raced with questions she wasn't sure she wanted to ask. The man in front of her was a stranger, yet his face mirrored hers in ways that made her chest tighten. She had spent years imagining what it would feel like to meet someone who shared her blood, someone who might finally fill the gaping hole left by her mother's silence. But now that the moment was here, doubt clawed at her. What if he didn't live up to the fragile image she had built in her head? What if this meeting only deepened the wounds she thought were starting to heal? David seemed just as uneasy, his hands fidgeting with the coffee cup as he tried to find words. "I don't even know where to begin," he admitted, his voice heavy with emotion. Emily nodded, swallowing hard. "Neither do I," she said softly. For a long time, they sat there, two people connected by biology, but separated by years of unanswered questions and unspoken pain. David eventually broke the silence, explaining how he and Lisa, Emily's mother, had drifted apart after a brief relationship when they were both young and reckless. He spoke about trying to reach out to her afterward, only to be met with silence. "If I had known," he trailed off, his voice cracking. Emily looked down at her hands, unsure whether to believe him or let the anger simmering inside her boil over. Back home, John and Sarah watched as Emily wrestled with her emotions. They could see the toll it was taking on her, the way she retreated into herself some nights, staring out the window for hours without speaking. Sarah tried to comfort her, reminding her that it was okay to feel conflicted. "You've been carrying this weight alone for so long. Sarah said one evening as they baked cookies together. "Let us help you carry it now." Emily appreciated their support, but this was something she knew she had to navigate on her own. Still, having them by her side gave her a sense of stability she hadn't realized she needed. Meanwhile, David's presence in her life began to stir up old memories. Some painful, others bittersweet. Emily found herself thinking more about her mother, wondering why Lisa had kept David's existence a secret. Was it fear, shame, or maybe something else entirely? These thoughts haunted her dreams, leaving her restless and anxious. One night, unable to sleep, she pulled out an old photo album John had helped her create shortly after moving in with them. Flipping through the pages, she paused at a picture of Lisa, taken when Emily was just a baby. Her mother's smile was warm, her eyes filled with a love that still lingered in Emily's heart, despite everything. Tears streamed down Emily's face as she whispered, "Why didn't you tell me?" The tension between Emily and David came to a head during one of their meetings. She confronted him about his past, asking pointedly why he hadn't fought harder to stay in Lisa's life. "You say you didn't know, but did you really try?" she demanded, her voice trembling. David flinched, clearly caught off guard by her accusation. "I was young and stupid," he replied, his tone defensive but tinged with regret. "I should have done more, and I'll never forgive myself for failing you both." His honesty disarmed her, but it didn't erase the years of wondering and wishing for answers that never came. As Emily grappled with her feelings toward David, another subplot unfolded within her newfound family dynamic. Mia noticed the subtle changes in her best friend. The late-night calls, the distracted glances, the occasional outbursts of frustration. Concerned, she approached Emily one afternoon while they worked on a school project. "You've been different lately," Mia observed, her voice gentle. Emily hesitated before opening up about David and the whirlwind of emotions his reappearance had triggered. Mia listened intently, offering advice without judgment. "Family is messy," she said with a shrug. "But sometimes messy can turn into something good." Despite the challenges, Emily couldn't deny the growing connection she felt with David. He invited her to join him for weekend outings, introduced her to his wife and kids, and encouraged her to pursue her passion for art. Slowly but surely, she started to see glimpses of the father she had always imagined, a man who cared, who wanted to make things right. Yet, the fear of rejection lingered, whispering cruel reminders of all the times she had been let down before. Would David stick around, or would he eventually fade away like everyone else? The climax of the story approached as Thanksgiving drew near. David extended an invitation for Emily to join his family for the holiday, promising her a place at the table alongside his wife, children, and extended relatives. It was a daunting prospect, stepping into a world that felt foreign, yet tantalizingly close to what she had always craved. As the day arrived, Emily stood outside David's house, her heart pounding in her chest. Inside, laughter and chatter spilled through the windows, painting a scene of warmth and belonging. Taking a deep breath, she rang the doorbell, bracing herself for whatever lay ahead. What happened next would change everything, not just for Emily, but for everyone involved. The air buzzed with anticipation as she stepped inside, greeted by smiling faces and welcoming arms. For the first time in her life, Emily wasn't watching from the sidelines. She was part of something bigger than herself. But as the evening unfolded, a revelation threatened to shatter the fragile bonds she had worked so hard to build. A single conversation, overheard by chance, forced her to confront the truth about David and about herself in ways she never expected. As Emily stood outside under the stars with David, She felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. But just as she started to let herself believe this could be her new reality, something unexpected happened. A voice called out from behind them, sharp and accusing. "What's going on here?" It was Lisa, David's wife. Her arms crossed, tightly over her chest. Her tone wasn't angry, but it carried an edge that made both Emily and David freeze. Lisa stepped closer, her eyes locked on Emily. "I overheard some of your conversation earlier tonight," she said, glancing at David briefly, before turning back to Emily. "About your mother, about how she kept you a secret." The room seemed to shrink around them, the warmth of the house now replaced by an icy tension. Emily's heart raced as she realized what Lisa might be implying, that maybe her presence in their lives wasn't as innocent as it seemed. David quickly stepped between them, his hands raised slightly, like he was trying to calm everyone down. "Lisa, please," he began, his voice strained. "This isn't what it looks like. Emily didn't know about me either until recently. We're just figuring things out." But Lisa shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "That's not the point, David. You're my husband, and these are our kids. How do we even know if any of this is true?" The accusation hit Emily like a punch to the gut. She had spent so long searching for answers, fighting to trust people again, only to face doubt once more. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that she hadn't asked for any of this, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she pulled out her phone and opened the DNA test results, showing them silently to Lisa. There it was in black and white. Parent-child match. No room for denial. Lisa stared at the screen for what felt like forever, her expression unreadable. Finally, she looked up at Emily, her voice softer, but still trembling. "Why now? Why after all these years does this come out?" Emily swallowed, hard, choosing her words carefully. "Because I needed to know who I am, who I came from. I didn't think anyone would care enough to listen." The honesty in her voice broke through whatever wall Lisa had been holding up. Tears streamed down Lisa's face as she whispered, "You have no idea how much this changes everything." For a moment, the three of them stood there, suspended in the weight of the truth. Then Lisa did something surprising. She reached out and hugged Emily. It wasn't perfect or easy, but it was real. When she finally pulled away, she wiped her eyes and said, "We'll figure this out together, all of us." David exhaled deeply, relief washing over him as he wrapped his arms around both of them. The rest of the night unfolded quietly, almost surreal. Everyone retreated indoors, where the family gathered in the living room. Jason and Lily sat close to Emily, sensing the gravity of the moment without fully understanding it. David explained everything to Lisa, how he had no idea about Emily's existence, how he wanted to make things right. Lisa listened intently, nodding occasionally, her initial anger giving way to compassion. By the end of the conversation, they agreed on one thing: Emily deserved a place in their lives, no matter how complicated it might get. Over the next few weeks, Emily began spending more time with David and his family. They weren't replacing John and Sarah. They couldn't, but they were filling a gap she hadn't realized existed. Slowly, she started to piece together fragments of her identity, learning about parts of herself she had never understood before. She discovered that David loved photography, just like her, that his favorite song matched hers. These small connections helped her see him not just as a stranger, tied to her by biology, but as someone who truly cared about being part of her life. Meanwhile, Emily continued to grow closer to John and Sarah too. They remained her anchor, supporting her every step of the way. One evening, sitting around the dining table, John asked her how she was handling everything. Emily smiled softly, looking between him and Sarah. "It's not easy," she admitted. "But I've realized something. I don't have to choose between you guys and David. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who love you and stand by you no matter what." Her words resonated deeply with everyone in the room. For John and Sarah, it was validation that they had done the right thing by taking her in. For Emily, it was acceptance, not just of others, but of herself. She had spent so long believing she didn't deserve happiness, that she was destined to be alone. Now, surrounded by two families who wanted nothing more than to support her, she finally allowed herself to hope. The story doesn't end neatly, because life rarely does. There will always be challenges ahead. Questions about her mother, moments of doubt, and the ongoing process of blending two very different worlds into one cohesive whole. But for the first time in her life, Emily feels ready to face those challenges head on. She knows she's not alone anymore, and that makes all the difference. As the camera fades out, we see Emily standing on the porch of John and Sarah's home, waving goodbye to David and his family as they drive away. The sun sets behind her, casting golden light across the city skyline. In that moment, she looks peaceful, not because everything is perfect, but because she's found something far greater, a sense of belonging. And sometimes, that's enough to carry you through anything.